Hello, this is Warm Insight. Today we're going to talk about the fierce battle and sudden shifts in the trillion-dollar weight loss drug market. Leaving a like and subscribing is a huge help to us. Did you know that a single clinical trial result can wipe out tens of billions of dollars in market value in a matter of minutes, completely reshaping the future of global healthcare and the portfolios of millions of investors? Today, the landscape of human health and the incredible innovations surrounding it pulsed with notable earth-shaking shifts. We are looking directly at a crucial advancement, or in this case, a dramatic stumble, in the treatment of serious metabolic diseases, and the intense, high-stakes, competitive dance between the absolute giants of the pharmaceutical industry. To truly understand the magnitude of what happened today, we have to look at the news that sent shockwaves across trading floors worldwide. Novo Nordisk, the undisputed pioneer of the modern weight loss revolution, announced that its highly anticipated next-generation obesity drug, CagriSema, failed to match the jaw-dropping efficacy of Eli Lilly's blockbuster drug, Zepbound, in a critically important clinical trial. The market reaction was swift, brutal, and unforgiving. Novo Nordisk's shares experienced a severe and notable dip, erasing billions in shareholder value in the blink of an eye. But the story does not end with a plunging stock chart. Shortly after this trial data was released, the Danish pharmaceutical titan announced massive, significant cuts to the list. Prices of its existing GLP-1 drugs in the United States. This sequence of events is not merely a dry corporate headline or a temporary blip on a ticker tape. It is a vivid, real-time illustration of the incredibly delicate balance in drug development, the harsh realities of free market dynamics, and the psychological warfare that takes place every single day on Wall Street. Let us zoom out and look at the deep, biological and economic context of this battlefield. The medications we are talking about belong to a class called GLP-1 receptor agonists. GLP-1 stands for glucagon-like peptide 1. Naturally, it is an incretin hormone produced in your gut within minutes of eating a meal. It does miraculous things in the human body. It tells your pancreas to secrete insulin, it slows down the emptying of your stomach, so you feel full longer, and most importantly, it crosses the blood-brain barrier to directly target the appetite regulation centers in the hypothalamus, effectively turning off the biological noise of constant hunger. For decades, obesity was viewed through a stigmatizing lens of a lack of willpower. Novo Nordisk fundamentally changed global medicine by proving that obesity is a chronic, biological disease that can be treated with a biological key. Their drug semaglutide, known globally under the brand names Ozempic for diabetes and Wegovy for weight loss, launched a medical revolution. But in the world of blockbuster drugs, a monopoly never lasts. Enter Eli Lilly, an American pharmaceutical powerhouse. With its own century-long history in diabetes care, Eli Lilly engineered a drug called tirzepatide, branded as Mounjaro and Zepbound. Instead of just targeting the GLP-1 receptor, tirzepatide acts as a dual agonist, targeting both GLP-1 and another hormone receptor called GIP. This dual action mechanism proved to be astonishingly powerful, driving average body weight reductions that pushed past the 20% mark in clinical trials. Numbers. Previously only seen with invasive bariatric surgery, Novo Nordisk, realizing the immense threat to its empire, has been desperately trying to leapfrog Eli Lilly again. Their weapon of choice was supposed to be CagriSema, a sophisticated combination of semaglutide and another compound called cagrilintide, an analog of the hormone amylin. The scientific community waited with bated breath, hoping this combination would deliver the knockout blow in the obesity wars. Instead, the trial data showed that CagriSema simply could not dethrone Zepbound. From a behavioral finance perspective, we often see markets react with a swift, almost visceral emotional response to such news. It is a violent, quick swing, from sky-high expectations to immediate, crushing disappointment. This phenomenon is deeply rooted in human psychology. The legendary psychologists Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky pioneered what is known as prospect theory, which proves that human beings are fundamentally wired for loss aversion. The psychological pain of losing money, or in this case, losing an expected future monopoly, is roughly twice as intense as the joy of gaining an equivalent amount. When investors saw the CagriSema data, their primal fear of loss was triggered. Furthermore, the collective herd instinct of Wall Street took over. When a few massive institutional algorithms start selling off a stock based on negative headline data, it triggers a cascading avalanche of selling. Everyone rushes for the exit at exactly the same time. This herd behavior completely overshadows the underlying fundamental strength and the strategic resilience of a globally dominant company like Novo Nordisk. Historically speaking, the journey of pharmaceutical innovation is rarely, if ever, a straight line drawn on a graph. It is a grueling, winding path marked by brilliant triumphs, crushing setbacks, and constant, relentless adaptation. To understand what Novo Nordisk is experiencing right now, we have to look back at the intense competition of the 1990s and the early 2000s during the Great Statin Wars. Statins are drugs that lower cholesterol, and they revolutionized cardiovascular health. The pioneer in this space was the pharmaceutical giant Merck, which launched the first commercial statin, Mevacor, and followed it up with the blockbuster Zocor. Merck dominated the market. They were the Novo Nordisk of their era. But then Warner Lambert, which was later acquired by Pfizer, developed a compound called atorvastatin. It was the fifth statin to enter the market. Being fifth usually means failure. However, clinical trials proved that atorvastatin, eventually branded as Lipitor, was significantly more efficacious at lowering bad cholesterol than Merck's Zocor. Lipitor went on to become the best-selling drug in the entire history of medicine, generating over $160 billion in lifetime sales. Merck's stock took massive hits during this war. People thought Merck was finished, but Merck adapted. They lowered prices, expanded access, continued to innovate in other disease areas, and remained a titan of the industry. The era of statins saw companies constantly vying for dominance, learning from failed clinical trials, and adapting their global strategies to survive. What we are witnessing today, with Novo Nordisk dramatically slashing the list prices of its legacy, GLP-1 medications in the United States is not just a panicked reaction to a clinical trial miss. It is a brilliant, proactive, and aggressive strategic pivot. The American healthcare system is an incredibly complex labyrinth of wholesale acquisition costs, list prices, and massive secret rebates negotiated by powerful middlemen, known as pharmacy benefit managers. By voluntarily cutting the list prices of their older drugs, Novo Nordisk is intentionally shrinking its profit margin on every single pen sold. But in exchange, they are massively widening the top of their consumer funnel. They are removing the immense out-of-pocket cost barriers that have prevented millions of middle-class and working-class patients from accessing these life-changing medications. This is a classic economic maneuver. When your product is no longer the absolute undisputed king of premium efficacy, you compete on volume, accessibility, and sheer market penetration. It demonstrates a profound understanding by Novo Nordisk's leadership that maintaining market dominance is not exclusively about holding the title for the next big scientific breakthrough. It is equally about ensuring widespread accessibility, building ironclad relationships with patients and insurers, and maintaining a robust, highly diversified portfolio of treatments. This monumental shift highlights exactly how the greatest companies in the world navigate inevitable challenges. They do not view a failed clinical trial as a permanent endpoint or a fatal defeat. They use it as a powerful catalyst for immediate recalibration. They renew their focus on actual patient benefit and engineer new pathways for sustainable long-term growth. It reminds us that true, lasting progress in the realm of global healthcare, much like the journey of life itself, is almost always found in how gracefully and intelligently we adapt and move forward after a painful stumble. The human body is arguably the most complex and intricate biological machine in the known universe. Attempting to artificially regulate its deeply ingrained evolutionary survival mechanisms, like the storage of fat, is an incredibly difficult scientific undertaking. The fact that we have even managed to create drugs that can safely reduce body weight by 15 to 20% is a modern medical miracle that would have sounded like absolute science fiction just 20 years ago. This brings us to today's warm insight. In moments where the daily avalanche of market news feels like a sudden, terrifying jolt, especially in a sector as vital and deeply personal as healthcare, it is completely natural for our minds to race with anxiety. We see the red numbers on the screen and we feel the instinct to panic. But I implore you to remember something essential. The underlying pulse of human health innovation is incredibly strong, remarkably resilient, and permanently enduring. Instead of allowing yourself to be violently swayed and exhausted by the chaotic daily swings of the stock market, I encourage you to anchor your focus and your peace of mind on the fundamental long-term trajectory of human need. Every single day, the global population is growing older, and the demand for better, more effective, and more accessible healthcare is rising exponentially. Invest your time, your capital, and your belief in companies that are genuinely dedicated to solving the most profound and painful problems facing humanity. You must deeply understand that the path of scientific discovery is never linear. It is a jagged line full of blind alleys and unexpected breakthroughs. Diversify your investments wisely to protect yourself against the failure of any single clinical trial. Trust in the slow, steady, and inevitable march of human progress, even when individual companies or specific drug pipelines have their inevitable stumbles. Your true peace of mind, both as an investor and as an observer of the world, comes from zooming out and seeing the magnificent big picture. It comes from the quiet confidence of knowing that genuine, life-altering value will always find its way to the surface eventually. Today, I felt that familiar, chaotic hum of the market's overreaction, like a sudden, aggressive gust of wind shifting direction in a storm. But watching it all unfold just powerfully reinforced for me how much profound comfort there is in knowing that we are playing the long game. We are focusing on what truly matters in life, the health of our families, the longevity of our bodies, and the patient, rational growth of our portfolios. I want to pass a question over to you. When you see a major healthcare company face a sudden setback, do you see a reason to panic? Or do you see a long-term opportunity for them to evolve and improve?